The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the gravel parking lot outside Hawk's custom garage into a shallow lake reflecting the single overhead light. Jack Morrison stood inside the bay door, one hand on the rolling steel, ready to close up after 14 hours of work that had earned him maybe $200. Not enough. Never enough anymore. The sound of tires splashing through water made him pause. A minivan, ancient and sputtering, pulled up close enough that he could see the desperation in the driver's face before she even killed the engine. The woman stumbled out, not bothering with an umbrella, her blonde hair plastered against her skull, within seconds. She ran around to the passenger side and pulled open the door. What emerged made Hawk's chest constrict so hard he thought his ribs might crack. A little girl, 7, maybe 8 years old, wearing a pink jacket that had seen better years and a beanie pulled low over her ears despite the warmth of the September evening. The woman Linda Carter, he recognized her from the repair work he'd done on that same van 2 weeks ago, wrapped her arm around the child's shoulders and hurried toward the garage. Hawk's hand tightened on the door. Every instinct screamed at him to pull it down, lock it, pretend he hadn't seen them. Linda's voice cut through the drumming rain. "Mr. Morrison, please. I know it's late. I know you don't. I didn't know where else to go." The girl looked up at him. Even in the harsh fluorescent light, he could see the fear in her eyes. The same fear he'd seen in another child's face in another lifetime, in a country where the sand got into everything and the smell of burning oil never quite left your nostrils. "Mrs. Carter," his voice came out rougher than he intended. He didn't move from the doorway. "I need help. Emma needs help. Please just, can we come in? Out of the rain." The girl, Emma, shivered. Water dripped from the edge of her beanie. She didn't say anything, just stared at him with those dark, frightened eyes that saw too much for someone so young. Hawk forced himself to stay still. Every muscle in his body wanted to turn around, walk away, disappear into the small apartment at the back of the garage where he could lock the door and take his pills and make the world go away for a few hours. "Mrs. Carter, I don't think I can help with whatever." "They hurt her." Linda's voice cracked on the last word. She pulled Emma closer, and the girl flinched at the touch. Not from her mother, from something else. Someone else. "Today at school, they cornered her, held her down, and they—" Linda reached up and slowly, gently pulled the beanie off Emma's head. The overhead light showed everything. The child's scalp was completely bare. Not naturally bald, not from illness. The razor marks were still visible. Angry red lines where someone had been careless. Rough, cruel. One spot near her left temple, still wet blood that mixed with rainwater and ran down the side of her face in a pink streak. Hawk's vision tunneled. The garage bay blurred at the edges. Suddenly, he wasn't standing in Pennsylvania anymore. He was in a house in Fallujah, 20 years younger, with better knees and fewer scars, and the absolute certainty that he could protect anyone if he just tried hard enough. "Mr. Morrison, you're a veteran. I know you are. I saw the photos in your office. You and your friends in the motorcycle club. I thought maybe you'd know what to do. The school won't help. The police say it's a juvenile matter. Her father's dead and I'm nobody. But you fought for people before. You know how to stand up to no." The word came out flat, final. Linda's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I'm sorry, what? I can't help you." Emma's eyes widened. Something flickered across her face that was worse than fear, worse than pain. It was the look of someone learning that the world was even crueler than they'd thought, that even the people who were supposed to protect you would turn away when you needed them most. "Mr. Morrison, please. I'm begging you. They're going to keep hurting her. They already posted the video online. Thousands of people have seen it. She can't sleep. She won't eat. I don't know what to do anymore, and you're the only person I could think of who might—" I said no. His hand moved to the door control. The motor whirred to life. "Get your daughter out of the rain, Mrs. Carter. Take her home, call a lawyer, call child services, call someone else. I can't help you." "But why won't you?" "Because I can't." The door started to descend, slowly, giving them time to back away. Linda stood there for 3 seconds. That felt like 3 hours, rain soaking through her thin jacket. Emma pressed against her side like she was trying to disappear. Then Linda's face hardened. Not with anger, with something worse, with understanding, with the recognition that she'd been a fool to hope. I'm sorry we bothered you. She replaced the beanie on Emma's head gently, carefully, like she was handling something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. Then she guided her daughter back to the van. Neither of them looked back. Hawk watched through the narrowing gap as they drove away, taillights disappearing into the rain. The door sealed with a heavy clunk that echoed through the empty garage. He stood there for a long time. Too long. His legs wouldn't move. His hands shook so badly he had to shove them in his pockets. The pills were in his apartment. The whiskey, too. Both waiting, both promising a few hours where he wouldn't have to remember. He turned and walked across the oil-stained concrete, past the Harley Heritage Softail he'd been restoring for 3 years, past the tool bench he'd inherited from his father, past all the familiar shapes that usually meant comfort and safety and control. The apartment door stuck the way it always did. He had to put his shoulder into it. Inside the studio was exactly as he'd left it that morning. Bed unmade, dishes in the sink, pill bottles lined up on the bathroom counter like soldiers at attention. He opened the nightstand drawer. The bottle of Jack Daniels sat next to his old Colt M1911, both relics from different wars against different enemies. He chose the whiskey. For now. The photograph was tucked in the back of the drawer, folded once down the middle. He knew he shouldn't look at it, knew it would make everything worse. But his fingers found it anyway, unfolding the creased paper with the kind of care he never showed anything else in his life. The girl in the photo was 8 years old. Dark hair, dark eyes, a smile that showed the gap where she'd lost her first tooth. She wore a yellow dress that her mother had sewn by hand, and she held a small American flag that Hawk had given her because she'd said she wanted to visit America someday and see the Statue of Liberty. Her name was Amira. She'd been dead for 20 years, 7 months, and 14 days. And every single one of those days, Hawk had wished it had been him instead. The voice that spoke from his memory had a thick accent and the kind of trust that children have before the world teaches them better. The words echoed in his skull the way they had every night since Fallujah. You promise keep my family safe, Mr. Jack. You promise. He had promised. God help him, he had looked that little girl in the eyes and promised. 2 days later, she died in his arms while insurgents fired rounds through the windows, and her parents' bodies cooled on the floor behind them. He'd killed 3 men that night, shot them dead without hesitation, without mercy, without regret. But he hadn't been fast enough, hadn't been smart enough, hadn't been good enough to save the one person who mattered. The last thing Amira said was his name. Just his name. Jack. Like she still believed he could fix it, like she still trusted him. He'd carried her body to the American checkpoint 2 miles away, walking through streets that stank of cordite and death, and when they tried to take her from him, he'd held on until 2 MPs had to physically pry his fingers loose. The official report said, civilian casualties, unavoidable under circumstances. Contractor Morrison acted within rules of engagement. The unofficial report, the one that lived in his head and played on repeat every night, said something else entirely. It said, you failed, you promised, and you lied, and you let her die because you weren't good enough. Hawk took a long drink from the bottle, then another. The burn didn't help. Emma Carter's face superimposed itself over Amira's in his mind. Same age, same fear, same desperate hope that an adult would step in and make everything okay. He'd seen that look before. He knew exactly where it led. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He ignored it. Probably one of the guys from the Brotherhood checking in, making sure he hadn't done something stupid. They did that sometimes. They'd been doing it for 3 years, ever since Big Mike had found him in this same apartment with the M1911 in his hand and just enough whiskey in his system to make pulling the trigger seem like mercy. The phone kept buzzing. He let it go to voicemail. Sleep didn't come. It never did anymore without the pills, and he'd already taken 2 Prazosin that morning, which meant he couldn't safely take more for another 6 hours. So he lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about little girls with terrified eyes and the way promises felt when they shattered. The nightmares found him anyway. In the dream, the same dream he'd had nearly every night for 2 decades, he was back in the house in Fallujah. The walls were pockmarked with bullet holes. The air tasted like copper and smoke. Amira's father lay in the doorway to the kitchen, his eyes still open but not seeing anything anymore. Her mother had made it 3 steps toward the back door before a round caught her in the spine. Amira huddled in the corner behind an overturned table. 8 years old, yellow dress torn, flag clutched in her hand. And Hawk, younger, stronger, more certain of everything, had his rifle up and was returning fire through the windows while telling her it would be okay. They just had to hold out for a few more minutes. Backup was coming. He'd promised her father he'd keep them safe, and he meant it. He'd die before he let anything happen to her. 3 insurgents came through the front door. He shot the first one in the face. The second took 2 rounds to the chest. The third got a burst from behind that nearly cut him in half. But while he was turning to fire, while he was focused on the immediate threat, someone else, someone he never saw, never identified, never got revenge on, fired through the side window. One shot, one 7.62 millimeter round, straight through Amira's chest. She fell without a sound. He didn't even know she was hit until he turned around and saw the blood spreading across the yellow dress like a blooming flower. The next part of the dream was always the clearest, always the most brutal. He dropped his rifle and ran to her, scooped her up, applied pressure to the wound even though he could feel the exit hole in her back, and knew with the certainty of someone who'd seen too many people die that she had minutes at most. Her eyes found his. Jack. Just his name. Just the one word. But in it was every question. Why did you let this happen? Why didn't you save them? Why didn't you keep your promise? I'm sorry, he said in the dream, the same words he'd said in reality. I'm so sorry, baby. Stay with me. Please stay with me. But she didn't. She couldn't. Her eyes glazed over while he was still talking, while he was still begging, while he was still trying to believe that willpower and desperation could restart a heart that had already stopped. Hawk jerked awake at 5 in the morning, soaked in sweat, his heart hammering so hard he thought he might be having a cardiac event. For a few seconds, he didn't know where he was. The apartment slowly came back into focus. Not Fallujah, Pennsylvania. Safe, alone, always alone. The morning routine was the same as it had been for 3 years. Wake at 5, lie still for 10 minutes while his heart rate normalized. Take the blood pressure medication. Take the Zoloft. Take the Prazosin if he hadn't maxed out the day before. Stand in the shower under water as cold as he could tolerate because the shock of it pulled him out of his head and back into his body. 50 push-ups. He made it to 47 before his arms gave out. Good enough. Coffee black in the cup he'd gotten at the Marine Corps Marathon in 2001, back when he'd been able to run 26 miles without his knees screaming. Now he couldn't jog 3 blocks without pain. The garage opened at 7, no customers until 9:30 when Mrs. Henderson would bring her Buick in for an oil change and complain about her grandson who'd moved to California and never called. Hawk would nod and make sympathetic noises and change her oil and check her fluids and send her on her way, and she'd pay cash because she didn't trust credit cards and leave him a $10 tip he didn't need but couldn't refuse without hurting her feelings. Predictable. Safe. Manageable. His phone showed 3 missed calls from last night, all from Linda Carter. No voicemails. She'd gotten the message. Good, he told himself. Better this way, better for everyone if he stayed in his lane and fixed cars and avoided anything that might require him to promise someone he'd keep them safe. The coffee tasted like ashes. At 7:15, his phone rang again. Not Linda this time. Big Mike. Hawk almost didn't answer. But Mike was persistent, and if Hawk didn't pick up now, Mike would show up at the garage in person, and that would be worse. Yeah, Mike's voice came through rough and warm like gravel wrapped in velvet. 65 years old and still sounded like he could command a platoon. Morning, brother. You sleep okay? Fine. Liar, you ever gonna learn to lie convincingly? Probably not. Mike chuckled, but there was concern underneath it. There was always concern. The man treated the Brotherhood like his personal responsibility, every member a son he had to look after. Listen, we got a situation came up yesterday. Case involving a kid, elementary school age, getting bullied pretty bad. I put word out at the meeting last night, but you weren't there. Hawk closed his eyes. Of course. Of course, this was why Mike was calling. You know I don't do kid cases, Mike. Yeah, I know, but this one's local, right here in Millbrook. And it's bad, Hawk. Real bad. Girl's a cancer survivor, just got back to school, and some punk kids decided to. I know about it. Silence on the other end. Then carefully, you know about it. The mother came by last night, asked for help. And Mike Tahane. And I told her no. More silence, longer this time. When Mike spoke again, his voice had changed, still warm but with steel underneath. Hawk, brother, it's been 3 years. Don't you think maybe don't? 3 years since you joined us. 3 years of helping veterans, helping families, standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. But every time a case involves a kid, you disappear. You skip meetings. You make excuses. Mike, I'm not judging. I'm really not. I know what happened to you in Fallujah. I know about Amira, but brother, you can't carry that forever. At some point, I gotta nothing. I'm not qualified to help with this. That's it. That's all. Not qualified. You're one of the best men I know. You've got integrity coming out your ears. You'd take a bullet for a stranger, but you won't help one little girl because I'll fail her too. The words burst out before Hawk could stop them. He was on his feet, pacing the small kitchen, his free hand clenched into a fist. I'll fail her the way I failed Amira, the way I fail everyone. I'm not a hero, Mike. I'm a broken down old man with PTSD and a drawer full of pills that barely keep me functional. You want to help this kid? Fine, get someone else. Get someone who doesn't wake up screaming. Get someone who doesn't see dead children every time they close their eyes. Mike let him finish, let the silence stretch out. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. Okay, brother, okay, I hear you. I'll handle it. But Hawk, you're wrong about one thing. What's that? You're not broken down. You're wounded. There's a difference, and sometimes the best people to help the wounded are the ones who know what it feels like. Mike hung up before Hawk could respond. The day ground forward with mechanical precision. Mrs. Henderson and her Buick, a teenager with a Honda Civic that needed new brake pads, a commercial van with transmission problems Hawk couldn't solve without parts he didn't have in stock. Normal, ordinary, the kind of work that didn't require him to be anything more than competent with tools. Around 2 in the afternoon, as he was wrestling with a particularly stubborn lug nut, the bay door rolled up. He didn't look. Probably another customer. Footsteps on concrete. Light. Hesitant. Hawk glanced over his shoulder. Emma Carter stood in the doorway. No beanie this time. Her bald head fully visible in the afternoon sun, the razor marks still red and angry, a bandage on the spot near her temple where she'd bled last night. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt 3 sizes too big, like she was trying to disappear inside it. Behind her, Linda waited by the van, not coming closer, letting her daughter do this alone. Hawk straightened, his back protested. He wiped his hands on a shop rag and tried to think of what to say to a 7-year-old girl who'd driven here for a reason he couldn't begin to guess. Emma walked closer, stopped about 10 feet away. Safe distance, close enough to talk, far enough to run if she needed to. Hi. Her voice was small but steady, stronger than last night, like she'd used up all her tears and found something harder underneath. Hi, Emma. You remember my name? Hard to forget. She nodded, processing this. Her eyes, dark and far too old, studied his face. Mom said you're a veteran, that you fought in a war. I did, a long time ago. Were you scared? The question caught him off guard. He expected anger, accusations, questions about why he'd turned them away. Not this. Yeah, pretty much all the time. But you still fought. That was my job. Emma took another step closer, her hands twisted together in front of her nervous energy she didn't know how to contain. Mom says the brave ones aren't the ones who aren't scared. The brave ones are the ones who are scared and do it anyway. Your mom's a smart woman. I'm scared all the time now. The words hung in the air between them. Hawk's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her it would get better, that the fear would fade, that whoever had hurt her would face justice. But he couldn't lie to her. Wouldn't. That's normal. After what happened to you. Will it go away, the scared? I don't know, maybe, sometimes. Emma noshed it again. She looked down at her feet. When she spoke next, her voice was even quieter. I heard you tell Mom no last night, about helping me. I did. Why? There it was, the question he'd been dreading. He could lie, should lie, tell her something comforting and meaningless. But those eyes, God, those eyes that saw right through him deserve better. Because I'm scared too, Emma. Because a long time ago I promised to keep someone safe. Someone about your age. And I failed. She died. And I've been scared ever since that if I promise to help someone again, I'll fail them too. Emma lifted her head, looked at him directly. What was her name? Amira. That's pretty. She was pretty, smart too, wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. Did she die in the war? She did. Were you there? I was. Emma thought about this for a long moment. Then she said something that nearly broke him. Amira must have been glad you were there. Even if, even if she died, at least she wasn't alone. Hawk couldn't speak. His vision blurred. He turned away, pretending to look for something on the workbench, blinking hard against the moisture in his eyes. Emma's voice came from right behind him. She closed the distance without him noticing. I understand if you can't help me, Mr. Hawk. I do. But I wanted to tell you something. Mom was wrong last night. He turned back. She was close enough now that he could see the individual scars on her scalp. Close enough that he could see she'd been crying recently, even if she wasn't crying now. Wrong about what? She said you know how to fight for people, but I think you already do fight. Every day, just by getting up and keeping going even when you're scared and sad. That's fighting too. That's brave. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. A piece of paper folded many times. She held it out to him. I drew this. Before what happened, I wanted to give it to someone who'd understand. Hawk took it, unfolded it carefully. The drawing was in crayon, the lines uncertain but determined. It showed a little girl with no hair standing next to what was clearly supposed to be a motorcycle. And next to the motorcycle was a stick figure of a man. Over their heads, Emma had drawn a sun with rays reaching down toward them. At the bottom, in careful block letters, even broken things can protect other broken things. Hawk stared at the drawing for a long time, long enough that Emma shifted uncomfortably, long enough that his hands started shaking again. Thank you. His voice came out hoarse, barely audible. You're welcome. I should go. Mom's waiting. She turned and walked back toward the van. Halfway there, she stopped and looked back. Mr. Hawk, if you change your mind, we'll still be here. Mom's number is the same, and I just wanted you to know. I don't think Amira would want you to be scared forever. I think she'd want you to keep being brave even if it's hard. Then she was gone, climbing into the van, Linda giving him one last look that might have been disappointment or might have been understanding, and the van pulled away into traffic. Hawk stood there holding a crayon drawing made by a 7-year-old girl who understood more about courage than most adults ever would. The phone in his pocket felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He made it until midnight before he picked it up and dialed the number he'd promised himself he'd never call again. Sarah Chen answered on the third ring, her voice alert despite the late hour. Night shift at the Veterans Crisis Center meant she was used to calls at ungodly hours. Jack, I need to talk. Come in, I'll be here all night. The drive took 20 minutes. The crisis center occupied the second floor of a building that used to be a bank back when Millbrook had enough money to need multiple banks. Now it was a nonprofit that survived on grants and donations and the tireless work of people like Sarah, who believed veterans deserved better than they got. Sarah met him at the door. 45 years old Korean-American former Army nurse who'd done 2 tours in Iraq and come back with her own collection of scars. She took one look at his face and led him to her office without a word. Coffee? No. Thanks, I just need... He didn't know how to finish the sentence. Sarah waited. She was good at waiting. It was part of what made her so effective. She never rushed, never pressured, just created space for whatever needed to come out. A woman came to see me 2 nights ago. Her daughter, 7 years old, cancer survivor, got her head shaved by some kids at school. Posted online, the mother wanted me to help. And you said no. I said no, Judge. But you're here now. Hawk pulled Emma's drawing from his pocket, unfolded it, set it on Sarah's desk. She studied it for a long moment. She drew this for you. Came back today to give it to me. 7 years old, and she's trying to make me feel better about abandoning her. You didn't abandon. I did. I looked at her and saw Amira and I ran. Same way I've been running for 20 years. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Outside the window, Millbrook was dark except for streetlights and the occasional car passing by. The kind of small town where nothing much happened except when it did, and then everyone either helped or looked away. Jack, you've been coming here for 3 years. Every time we get close to this conversation, you pull back. Why now? Why tonight? Because that little girl looked at me today and told me I was brave for getting up every morning. Because she looked at my mess of a life and somehow found something worth respecting. And his voice cracked. He pushed on. I keep thinking about what she said, about Amira, about how maybe Amira wouldn't want me to be scared forever. Do you think that's true? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore, except that I'm 62 years old and I'm terrified of a 7-year-old girl's hope. Sarah picked up the drawing, studied it again. What scares you most, failing or succeeding? The question hit like a punch to the solar plexus. I don't understand. If you help Emma and you fail, if something happens to her, that confirms what you already believe about yourself. You're not good enough. You can't save anyone. You let Amira down and you'll let everyone else down too. That's familiar territory, painful but familiar. She set the drawing down carefully. But if you help Emma and you succeed, if you actually manage to protect her, then you have to confront something much harder. You have to ask yourself, if you could save Emma, could you have saved Amira? And if the answer is no, if Amira's death really was unavoidable, then you've been carrying guilt for 20 years that you didn't deserve. And if the answer is yes, well, that's even worse. Hawk's hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. You're saying either way I'm screwed. I'm saying you've built your entire identity around being the man who failed Amira, around being broken, around being someone who can't be trusted with protecting anyone. And Emma is offering you a chance to be someone different. That's terrifying. So what do I do? That's not my call, but I'll tell you what I told you 3 years ago when Mike first brought you here. There's a difference between honoring Amira's memory and being paralyzed by it. You can remember her. You can carry her with you. You can let what happened to her matter, but using her death as an excuse to never try again, that doesn't honor anyone. Hawk stared at the drawing. Even broken things can protect other broken things. What if I'm not strong enough? Then you'll fail, and it'll hurt, and you'll survive it like you've survived everything else. But Jack, what if you are strong enough? What if you're exactly strong enough? What happens then? He didn't have an answer. Sarah walked him to the door at 1 a.m. Before he left, she put a hand on his arm. Whatever you decide, I'm here. The whole team is here. You're not alone in this. Thanks. And Jack, that little girl was right. Getting up every morning when everything hurts, that is brave. Don't forget that. The drive home was a blur. Hawk's mind churned with possibilities, consequences, scenarios that spiraled into worst-case outcomes. But underneath all the fear and doubt, something else was growing. Something that felt almost like purpose. At 2:30 in the morning, he sat in his truck outside the garage and pulled out his phone. Linda Carter's number was still in his recent calls. His thumb hovered over it for a full minute. If he made this call, there was no taking it back. If he made this call, he was committing to something he might not be able to deliver. If he made this call, he was opening himself up to the possibility of failing again, of watching another child suffer because he wasn't good enough, fast enough, smart enough. Amira's face flickered through his memory, then Emma's, then Amira's again. They overlapped, merged, became one girl who needed someone, anyone to be brave enough to try. His thumb touched the screen. The phone rang 4 times. He almost hung up, almost convinced himself this was a mistake. Linda's voice came through, rough with sleep and confusion. Hello. Mrs. Carter, it's Jack Morrison. Silence. Then, Mr. Morrison, it's 2:30 in the morning. I know, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you and I changed my mind about helping Emma, if the offer's still open. More silence. When Linda spoke again, her voice shook. Why, what changed? Your daughter came to see me today. She said some things that she made me realize I've been scared for a long time. And I'm still scared. But maybe being scared isn't a good enough reason to say no. Mr. Morrison, I need to know you're serious. I need to know you're not going to change your mind again, because Emma, she can't handle being let down again. She's hanging on by a thread. I'm serious. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Linda talked for 40 minutes. She told him about Emma's cancer diagnosis at 6 years old, 8 months of chemotherapy, the hair loss, the fear, the pain, the small miracle of remission, the hope that life could go back to normal. Then the bullying started. Tyler Brennan, 13 years old, son of Robert Brennan, who owned half the car dealerships in the county and sat on the school board. Tyler and his friends calling Emma names, pushing her in the hallway, taking her lunch, escalating bit by bit while teachers looked the other way because nobody wanted to cross the Brennan family. Then Wednesday, the day it went from bad to something else entirely. Tyler and 4 other boys cornering Emma during recess in the back corner of the playground where the cameras didn't reach. Holding her down, Tyler with a machine clipper he'd stolen from his father's bathroom. Shaving her head while his friends filmed it on their phones. The video went up on Instagram within minutes. 5,000 views in 2 hours. Emma Carter, 7 years old, bald head, bleeding, crying and screaming while teenagers laughed. Linda's voice broke as she described it. The schools said their hands were tied. Social media is outside their jurisdiction. The police said it's a juvenile matter file, a complaint with the school. I went to the Brennan's house. Security wouldn't let me pass the gate. I tried to hire a lawyer. Do you know how much lawyers cost? I work 3 jobs and I can barely afford rent. What about Emma's father? Died when she was 2. Car accident. No life insurance. It's just us. Other family. My parents are gone. His parents won't talk to me, long story. We're alone, Mr. Morrison. It's just me and Emma against everything. Hawk closed his eyes, alone. He knew that feeling intimately. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to talk to some people. Veterans I know. Men who don't like bullies and don't care who someone's father is. We're going to put together a plan. Mr. Morrison, call me Hawk, and Mrs. Carter, we need you to understand something. I'm not a hero. I'm not some white knight who's going to ride in and make everything perfect. I'm just a guy with some friends who might be able to help. No promises, except that I'll try. That's more than anyone else has done. Don't thank me yet. This could get messy. The Brennans have money and power. They're not going to just roll over. I don't care. Emma needs someone to stand up for her. If you're willing to do that, then whatever comes, we'll handle it. After he hung up, Hawk sat in his truck until the sky started to lighten. Thinking, planning, trying to convince himself he hadn't just made the worst decision of his life. At 6 in the morning, he called Big Mike. Mike answered immediately like he'd been waiting. Tell me you're calling to say what I hope you're calling to say. I need a Brotherhood meeting. Tonight, emergency session. The girl. Mike was quiet for a beat. Then you sure about this, brother? Once we start down this road, there's no backing out. I'm not sure about anything except that a 7-year-old kid needs help and we're the only ones offering. All right, I'll make the calls. 7 o'clock at the clubhouse. How many you think will show? No idea. This isn't a veteran issue. This isn't something covered in our charter. Some guys might not want to get involved. Then we'll find out who's really Brotherhood and who's just along for the ride. See you tonight, Hawk. The day dragged. Hawk worked on autopilot, his mind churning through scenarios. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, he'd convinced himself a dozen times to cancel the meeting. The Brotherhood wasn't a vigilante group. They helped veterans transition to civilian life. They escorted military funerals. They raised money for veteran causes. Getting involved in a school bullying case with a powerful local family, that was different. That was asking for trouble. But every time he reached for his phone to call it off, he thought about Emma standing in his garage looking at him with those old sad eyes, telling him that even broken things could protect other broken things. The Iron Brotherhood clubhouse was in an old warehouse on the edge of town. Big Mike had bought it for a song 15 years ago, and the members had slowly converted it into something functional. Pool tables, a bar that served beer and nothing stronger. American flags everywhere. Photos of members past and present, some of them with black ribbons now gone to whatever comes after. Hawk arrived at 6:45, already 20 motorcycles lined up outside, more pulling in as he watched. By 7 o'clock, there were 83 bikes. Not the full 99 members of the Brotherhood, but more than Hawk had expected. 16 members were absent work obligations, family commitments, or simply choosing not to get involved. Inside, men ranged from their mid-50s to their 70s. All veterans, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, peacetime service, and combat both. Men who'd seen the world and decided this small Pennsylvania town was worth defending. Big Mike stood at the front of the room, 65 years old, 6'3", built like a concrete wall. Former Army Ranger, 3 tours, Silver Star, the kind of man people naturally followed. Brothers, thank you for coming on short notice. I'll let Hawk explain why we're here. Every eye in the room turned to Hawk. He walked to the front, his boots loud on the concrete floor. His throat was dry. His hands wanted to shake. He forced them still. 2 nights ago, a woman named Linda Carter came to my garage. She brought her daughter Emma, 7 years old, cancer survivor. Someone shaved her head and posted it online for entertainment. The school won't help. The police won't help. She came to me because she thought maybe we might be different. He pulled out his phone, pulled up the Instagram video that was still circulating despite Linda's attempts to get it removed. Turned the screen toward the room. This is what was done to that little girl. Watch it. All of it. Then we'll talk. The room fell silent except for the audio from the phone. Emma's voice, the laughter of teenage boys, the sound of clippers, crying. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Hawk looked at their faces, saw anger, saw disgust, saw the same thing he felt. The boy who did this is Tyler Brennan. His father is Robert Brennan, sits on the school board, owns Brennan Auto Group, has money and connections, and the kind of power that makes people look the other way. Tommy Doc Sullivan, 58, former Navy corpsman, raised his hand. Hawk, what exactly are you asking us to do? I'm asking if we're willing to stand up for a child who has nobody else. I'm asking if we're willing to use our presence, just our presence, no violence, nothing illegal, to make it clear that bullying isn't acceptable. That money doesn't buy immunity. That a 7-year-old girl deserves the same protection we'd give to any veteran. Lou Hastings, 56, mechanic, shook his head. I got a business. I got customers. Some of them know the Brennans. This could cost me. It could. Then why should I risk it? Because it's the right thing to do. But Lou, if you vote no, I respect that. I'm not going to guilt anyone into this. We take a vote. Majority rules. Anyone who votes no can walk away, no judgment. Ray Preacher Williams stood, 67, former Army chaplain, the spiritual heart of the Brotherhood. Brothers, I've been reading scripture my whole life, and one thing it's clear about: we protect the defenseless. We stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. This isn't complicated. A child was hurt. We have the power to help. The question isn't whether we should, it's whether we will. Carl Jennings, 70, oldest member, Vietnam veteran, nodded slowly. I fought for 30 years. I didn't fight so rich kids could torture sick children without consequence. I'm in. The room stirred, murmurs of agreement, but also doubt. Hawk could see it, the calculation, the risk versus reward. He stepped forward. Before we vote, I need to tell you something about why I almost didn't take this case, about why I'm terrified right now. Every eye on him again. He swallowed hard. 20 years ago, I was a contractor in Fallujah. I was assigned to protect an Iraqi translator's family. His wife, his daughter. Her name was Amira, 8 years old, dark hair, bright eyes, wanted to be a teacher. I promised her father I'd keep them safe. I looked that little girl in the eyes and I said, I got you. His voice roughened. 2 days later, insurgents hit the house. I killed 3 of them, but I wasn't fast enough, wasn't good enough. Amira's parents died, and Amira, she took a round through the chest. She died in my arms while I was still promising her she'd be okay. Her last word was my name, just my name, like she still trusted me even though I'd failed her. The room was dead silent. I haven't made a promise to protect a child since that night. Haven't let myself get close to any kid. Haven't taken any case involving children because I know I'm not good enough. I'll fail, and I can't handle failing again. He paused, breathed. But Emma Carter came to my garage yesterday, 7 years old, bald head, scars, scared. And you know what she told me? She said even broken things can protect other broken things. She looked at me at this mess of PTSD and medication and guilt, and she saw something worth protecting. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. So I'm asking you, will you ride with me? Will you stand with me? Not because I'm qualified or because I know what I'm doing, but because there's a little girl who needs us. And maybe that's reason enough. The silence stretched, then Big Mike stepped forward. All in favor of riding for Emma Carter, raise your hand. Hands went up, one by one. Not all at once, not unanimous, but enough. Hawk counted 61 hands out of 83 present. All opposed 22 hands, including Lou, including several others who Hawk respected, whose caution he understood. Motion carries. We ride for Emma. The room erupted in conversation. Questions, planning, who would go, when, what the strategy would be, legal concerns, safety concerns, all the practical details that came with doing something big and potentially dangerous. Hawk stood there feeling like he might throw up. 61 men had just agreed to put themselves on the line for a girl they'd never met because he'd asked them to. The weight of that responsibility was crushing. His phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. He opened it. The message was short, direct, accompanied by a photo he recognized immediately. His own arrest record from 2005 when he'd beaten a man who'd been knocking his girlfriend around in a bar parking lot. Charges dismissed, but the record remained. The text read, "Stay away from the Brennan family. This is your only warning. You've been in enough trouble already. Don't make it worse." Hawk stared at the screen. Someone was watching. Someone knew. Someone was ready to use his past against him. He looked up at the room full of veterans making plans to help a child. Then back at his phone. Then at the photo of Emma he'd saved from Linda's messages. 7 years old, bald head, eyes that had seen too much. His hands were shaking again, but this time he didn't try to hide it. Big Mike noticed, walked over. "Everything okay, brother?" Hawk showed him the text. Mike read it. His jaw tightened. "They're already moving against us." "Yeah. You want to call it off?" Hawk thought about Amira, about promises broken and trust betrayed, about 20 years of guilt and fear, about a little girl who'd drawn him a picture in crayon because she believed he could be better than he believed himself. "No, we ride tomorrow night, 7:30, Rosewood Diner, where the Brennan family is having Tyler's birthday party." Mike's eyes widened slightly. "That's bold. That's necessary. We show up where they are, where everyone can see. We make it impossible to ignore." "You sure about this timing?" "No, but Emma doesn't have time for me to be sure. So we go. Tomorrow. All of us who voted yes, we make our stand." Mike gripped his shoulder. "Then that's what we'll do. For Emma, for Amira. For every kid who ever needed someone to stand between them and the wolves." Hawk nodded, tried to believe he was doing the right thing. Tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. That night, he didn't sleep at all. Just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios, making plans, trying to prepare for every possibility, while knowing he couldn't possibly prepare for everything. At 3 in the morning, his phone buzzed again. Another text, same unknown number. "Last chance to walk away, Morrison. We know about Fallujah. We know about Amira. We know you're a broken down old man who couldn't protect a child then and can't protect one now. Stay away from our family." Hawk read it twice, then deleted it. Then he pulled up Emma's drawing one more time. "Even broken things can protect other broken things." Dawn came slowly. Hawk watched it through his window, trying to remember the last time he'd felt this kind of purpose, this kind of fear, this kind of desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be the man a 7-year-old girl believed him to be. One more day, then they'd ride. Then he'd find out if broken things could protect anyone at all. Friday morning broke cold and gray over Millbrook. Robert Brennan stood at the window of his corner office on the 3rd floor of Brennan Auto Group headquarters watching traffic flow past on Route 30. 48 years old. Self-made. Started with one failing dealership in 1998 and built it into an empire. 5 locations now. 40 million in annual revenue. Respect. Power. Everything he'd sworn he'd have back when he was 19 and wearing thrift store shoes that let water in when it rained. His private line rang. Marcus Webb, the attorney he kept on permanent retainer. "Robert, we have a situation developing." That biker club, Iron Brotherhood. They held a meeting last night. My source says they voted to take action regarding your son. Brennan's jaw tightened. How many? 61 members voted in favor. Morrison led the charge. Gave quite a speech, apparently. Morrison, the mechanic with the garage on 5th Street, former Marine, contractor in Iraq, has significant PTSD, history of violence. I've got his full file here. Want me to send it over? Send everything. And Marcus, I want options, legal ones and otherwise. The file arrived within 20 minutes. Brennan spread the pages across his mahogany desk. Jack Morrison's life laid bare in black and white. Dishonorable discharge, no honorable but with notes about psychological fitness. 2 decades of service ending in 2002. Then contractor work. Then Fallujah. The incident report from 2004 made him pause. Civilian casualties during insurgent attack. Iraqi family killed. Contractor Morrison held responsible by some accounts cleared by official investigation. But the details were murky. Sealed records, redacted names, the kind of thing that left questions. Then 2005. Arrest in Philadelphia. Assault charges. Morrison had beaten a man badly enough to require hospitalization. Case dismissed when the victim refused to testify, but the photos were brutal. 3 broken ribs, fractured jaw, orbital bone fracture. So our hero has a temper. Brennan made notes. Pressure points, vulnerabilities. The PTSD diagnosis meant medications. Medications meant pharmacy records. Records meant leverage. The 2005 arrest meant Morrison had crossed the line before. Could be painted as unstable, dangerous. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Brennan, your 10 o'clock is here. The private investigator was exactly what you'd expect. Mid-50s ex-cop now working for whoever paid best. He settled into the leather chair across from Brennan's desk with the confidence of someone who'd done this dance many times. Tell me about Morrison's current situation. The investigator pulled out his own file, thinner but more recent. Lives alone, 1-bedroom apartment behind his garage. No wife, no kids, no close family. The Brotherhood is his only real social connection. Finances are bad. Behind on rent. Behind on business insurance. 1 major expense away from bankruptcy. Mental state. Sees a counselor at the VA Crisis Center. Weekly, sometimes twice weekly other times. Takes 3 different medications for PTSD and depression. Had a suicide scare 3 years ago. Friend found him with a gun. Brennan felt something that might have been sympathy but pushed it down. Weakness was weakness. Morrison had chosen to make himself an enemy. Here's what I need. Send Morrison a message. Nothing threatening, just factual. Let him know we have this information. Let him know that if he proceeds, all of it becomes public. The Fallujah incident, the assault, the suicide attempt, everything. You want to blackmail him? I want to give him an opportunity to reconsider. There's a difference. After the investigator left, Brennan sat alone with Morrison's file. Something about the man's face in the DMV photo bothered him. The eyes, haunted. The same look Brennan remembered seeing in his own mirror 30 years ago when he was poor and scared and being shoved into lockers by kids whose parents had money. He shook off the thought. Morrison had made his choice. Now he'd face consequences. His son Tyler appeared in the doorway. 13 years old. Too thin, too quiet, nothing like the confident young man Brennan was trying to build. Dad, you wanted to see me. Come in. Close the door. Tyler obeyed with the nervous energy of someone expecting punishment. Brennan studied him. When had his son become so timid? When had fear replaced fire? Your birthday party is tomorrow night. Rosewood Diner. Your mother's arranged everything. I know. There might be some disruption, some men who don't approve of how you've been handling yourself at school. I need you to understand something, Tyler. Winners and losers. That's all the world is. And winners don't apologize for being strong. Tyler looked at his shoes, the same way he always did when Brennan tried to toughen him up. Dad, about Emma Carter. We're not discussing that. You defended yourself against someone who made you uncomfortable. That's natural, that's human. The fact that she had cancer doesn't make her special, doesn't give her immunity from normal social dynamics. But I didn't defend myself, I attacked her. We held her down and... Enough. Brennan's voice cracked like a whip. Tyler flinched. You're 13 years old. You're learning how the world works. Sometimes we do things that seem harsh but are necessary. Your grandfather didn't build this family's reputation by being soft. I didn't build this company by backing down. And you won't succeed in life by letting people think you're weak. Tyler's eyes glistened. Brennan felt frustration surge. Why couldn't the boy understand kindness was a luxury for people who could afford it? People like them had to be harder, had to be stronger. Go, I have work to do. Tyler left without another word. Brennan turned back to his window. Somewhere out there, Morrison was probably planning, strategizing, thinking he could ride in on his motorcycle with his veteran friends and shame the Brennan family into submission. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to the investigator. Send the warning text to Morrison. Now, let him know what he's facing. The response came immediately. Done. Brennan allowed himself a small smile. Morrison would receive the message, see his past laid bare, understand that continuing down this path would destroy him. Any rational man would back down. But something about Morrison's file suggested he wasn't entirely rational. Across town, Hawk finished changing the oil on a Ford pickup and wiped his hands on a rag that hadn't been clean in weeks. The text from last night sat heavy in his mind. They knew about Amira, knew about the arrest, knew everything. His phone rang, not a number he recognized, but local area code. Morrison. Mr. Morrison, my name is Marcus Webb. I'm an attorney representing the Brennan family. I'm calling to inform you that we're prepared to seek a restraining order against you and your associates if you make any attempt to contact or approach my clients. Hawk's grip tightened on the phone. Your client's son assaulted a 7-year-old girl. That's a matter for the juvenile justice system, not for vigilante bikers. We're not vigilantes. We're concerned citizens. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be frank with you. We know about your history, Fallujah, the assault in Philadelphia, your mental health struggles. If you pursue this course of action, all of that becomes public record in our filings. Your military service will be questioned. Your business will be investigated. Your past will be examined in ways I don't think you'll enjoy. Something cold settled in Hawk's stomach. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of consequences. There's a difference. You have until 5 o'clock today to confirm you're standing down. After that, we proceed with full legal action. The line went dead. Hawk stood in the garage bay holding his phone greased still under his fingernails, the weight of 20 years pressing down on his shoulders. They were going to drag Amira into court, going to make him explain how he'd failed her, going to parade his worst moments in front of everyone. He should back down, should call Big Mike, should tell Emma's mother he'd made a mistake. His phone buzzed again. Text from Linda Carter. Emma wants to see you before tonight. Can we come by around 3? Hawk stared at the message. Every rational cell in his brain screamed at him to say no, to run, to protect himself the way he'd been protecting himself for 2 decades. He typed back, 3 works. I'll be here. The afternoon dragged. 2 customers, a brake job, and a tire rotation. Mechanical work that didn't require thought. Muscle memory taking over while his mind spun through scenarios, each one worse than the last. At 3:15, Linda's van pulled up. Emma climbed out wearing jeans and a hoodie, her bald head covered by a blue baseball cap this time. She walked into the garage with more confidence than 2 days ago, but still cautious, still ready to bolt. Linda stayed by the van. Emma stopped a few feet from where Hawk was wiping down his workbench. Hi, Mr. Hawk. Hey, Emma. Mom said tonight's the night when you and your friends are going to the restaurant. That's right. Are you scared? The directness of it caught him off guard. Most adults would dance around the question. Most kids wouldn't ask at all. Yeah, pretty scared. Emma nodded like this made perfect sense. Me too. Mom says Tyler's dad is really powerful, that he could make bad things happen to you. He could try. But you're still going? Hawk set down the rag. Looked at this 7-year-old girl who'd survived cancer and cruelty and was still asking questions instead of hiding. Emma, I need to tell you something. About a girl I knew a long time ago. Her name was Amira. She lived in Iraq. She was 8 years old. Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. I was supposed to protect her. That was my job. Keep her and her family safe. And I thought I could. I thought if I just tried hard enough, was good enough, I could make sure nothing bad happened to them. His throat tightened, but he pushed through. But bad things happened anyway. Really bad things. And Amira died. In my arms. While I was still promising her everything would be okay. Emma's small hand reached out, touched his arm. That's why you said no at first, when Mom asked for help. Yeah, because I'm terrified of failing again. Terrified of looking you in the eyes and promising I'll protect you and then watching something terrible happen because I wasn't good enough. Emma thought about this for a long moment. Then she did something that absolutely destroyed him. She pulled off her baseball cap, exposed her scarred bald head in the harsh garage light. Mr. Hawk, when I had cancer, the doctors promised my mom I'd be okay. And I was. But some kids in the hospital weren't. Some of them died even though the doctors tried really hard. She stepped closer. Does that mean the doctors shouldn't have tried? Does that mean they should have given up on all of us because some kids die anyway? Hawk's vision blurred. He blinked hard. No, of course not. Then why should you give up on me just because you couldn't save Amira doesn't mean you can't save me? And Mr. Hawk, she waited until he looked directly at her. Even if something bad happens to me, even if Tyler or his dad does something worse, I still want you to try. Because trying matters. Because someone caring enough to treat matters more than being perfect. Hawk couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This child who'd been tortured by teenagers was comforting him about his failures. Emma replaced her cap. Then she stepped forward and hugged him, just wrapped her thin arms around his waist and held on. His hands hovered for a second before settling gently on her back. You're the bravest person I've ever met, sweetheart. Her voice was muffled against his shirt. You're brave too. You just don't know it yet. After they left, Hawk sat on the floor of his garage and shook. Deep, racking tremors that came from somewhere primal. Fear and grief and something that might have been hope if hope didn't hurt so much. He pulled out his phone, called Sarah Chen. Jack, I need you to tell me I'm not making a terrible mistake. What's happening, he explained. The threats, the legal pressure, Emma's visit, the plan for tonight. Sarah listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a beat. Jack, I can't tell you this isn't a mistake. I don't know if it is or isn't. But I can tell you that you're the first time in 3 years choosing to engage with life instead of hiding from it. That counts for something. Even if it destroys me. Even then, because at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll know you showed up for someone who needed you. That's more than most people ever do. What if I fail her? Then you'll fail, and it'll hurt, and you'll survive. But Jack, what if you don't fail? What if you're exactly what Emma needs? Can you live with never finding out? After hanging up, Hawk looked at the time. 4:30. The Brotherhood would be gathering at 5:30. The ride to the diner would start at 6:15. In less than 3 hours, they'd either make a statement that mattered or walk into a trap that would destroy them all. He walked to his apartment, opened the drawer with his medications, took the evening doses. Then he pulled out his dress uniform from the back of the closet. The one he hadn't worn since his father's funeral 8 years ago. Navy blue trousers with the red stripe. The jacket with his ribbons and medals. Not because he wanted to show off, because he wanted Brennan to see exactly who he was dealing with. A United States Marine. Someone who'd sworn an oath to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The oath didn't end just because the uniform came off. By 5:45, Harley Davidsons filled the parking lot of the Iron Brotherhood clubhouse. Not the full 65 who'd committed. 5 had backed out at the last-minute jobs families fear. Hawk didn't blame them. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Men checked their phones, adjusted their vests, made small talk that didn't quite hide the nerves underneath. Big Mike stood at the front of the room in full dress uniform. Army Rangers, 30 years. Silver star pinned to his chest. Brothers, I'm going to be straight with you. What we're about to do is going to cost some of us, maybe all of us, Yiki's reputation, money, peace of mind. I need every man here to understand that before we roll out. He paused. There's a sheriff's vehicle parked outside. Deputy I know tipped me off. They're going to follow us. They've got a restraining order. The second we step into that diner, we're in violation. Arrests are possible, probable even. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. So I'm saying this one more time. If you want out, leave now. No shame, no judgment. This is bigger than any one of us thought it would be. Three men exchanged glances, stood, walked to their bikes, and rode away. 57 now, Big Mike said quietly. 57 brothers who'll risk everything. Then Lou Hastings stood. The mechanic who'd initially voted against then changed his mind and agreed to ride. Mike, I voted no 2 nights ago. I was scared of losing my business. Scared of the Brennans coming after me. But I went home and I told my daughter what was happening. You know what she said? Mike, I voted no 2 nights ago. I was scared of losing my business. Scared of the Brennans coming after me. But I went home and I told my daughter what was happening. You know what she said? He paused. She said, Dad, you always told me to stand up to bullies. Are you going to do what you told me to do? Lou's voice cracked. I can't look her in the eyes and say no. I can't teach her to be brave and then be a coward myself. So I'm in. All the way, whatever it comes. Three other men who'd voted against stood up, joined Lou. Big Mike nodded slowly. Anyone else changing their vote? One more hand went up, then silence. All right, 65 brothers committed. Lou and 4 others just changed their votes. Riding for Emma Carter, riding for what's right, let's mount up. The formation ride was something Hawk had done dozens of times. 2 columns, staggered, 15 feet between bikes, hand signals for turns and stops, military precision born from years of practice. But this time felt different, heavier. The engines rumbled with purpose. The wind carried weight. They stopped at a gas station 10 miles from the diner. Last chance for bathroom breaks. Last chance for second thoughts. Hawk stood apart from the group, staring at his phone. The text messages from the unknown number had multiplied. 3 more since this afternoon. Last chance to turn back. We know where you live. This will destroy you. Tommy Doc Sullivan walked over. 58, Navy corpsman. Had sewn men back together in combat zones and watched them die anyway. You good brother. They're threatening me. Not just legal stuff. Personal stuff. Doc looked at the messages. His jaw tightened. They're scared. People who aren't scared don't threaten. They act. You think we're doing the right thing? I think there's a 7-year-old girl who got her head shaved by teenagers who laughed while they did it. I think the system that's supposed to protect her looked the other way because her attacker's father has money. And I think we're the only people who showed up. He gripped Hawk's shoulder. That's not heroism, brother. That's just basic human decency. The fact that it feels brave says more about the world than it does about us. At 6:40, they rolled out. 57 motorcycles, 57 veterans, 57 men who'd seen war and decided this was a battle worth fighting. The police car followed, lights off but obviously tracking. 7:15. The diner came into view. Rosewood Family Restaurant, local institution, Friday night crowd. Through the windows, Hawk could see balloons, a birthday cake, the Brennan family at a large table near the center. Tyler sat beside his father, looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt that was too formal for a 13-year-old. His mother across from him. Extended family filling the surrounding tables. Probably 35 people total. Big Mike raised his hand, the signal to slow, to prepare. They pulled into the parking lot in formation, filled every available space, and there's then some. The sound of 57 engines idling was like thunder, like a promise, like a reckoning. Inside the diner, heads turned. Conversations stopped. Someone pulled out a phone and started filming. Hawk killed his engine, removed his helmet. The dress uniform drew immediate attention. Other brothers did the same. Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force. Every branch represented, every uniform pressed and perfect. The police car pulled up behind them. 2 deputies emerged. One Hawk recognized. Sheriff Bradley himself, looking uncomfortable but determined. Bradley approached Big Mike. Mike, I've got a restraining order here. If any of you enter that building, you're under arrest. We're aware, Tom. We're going in anyway. Don't make me do this. You're not making us do anything. We're choosing. There's a difference. Hawk stepped forward, met Bradley's eyes. Sheriff, with all due respect, arrest me first. This was my idea. These men are following my lead. If someone goes down, it should be me. Bradley looked at the 57 bikers standing in formation, then at the diner full of witnesses, then back at Hawk. You know what you're doing to yourselves. Brennan's going to bury you in lawsuits. Legal fees alone will bankrupt half of you. Probably. Then why? Hawk pulled out his phone, pulled up the video of Emma being attacked, held it toward Bradley. Watch this, all of it. Bradley hesitated, then took the phone. His face went pale as the video played. When it ended, he handed the phone back without speaking. That's why. Now, are you going to arrest us, or are we going inside? Bradley looked at his deputy. Back at the bikers, then at the diner. I'll give you 5 minutes. Say what you need to say, then we're taking you in. That's all we need. Hawk walked toward the entrance. 56 boots followed him. 57 men total moving as one. The door opened with a cheerful chime that seemed obscene given what they were about to do. Every eye in the restaurant turned. Conversation died. Silverware stopped moving. Robert Brennan stood immediately, face red, posture aggressive. You've got a lot of nerve showing up here. Hawk walked to the center of the dining room. The brothers fanned out along the walls, not threatening, just present, just witnessing. Mr. Brennan, my name is Jack Morrison. These men are my brothers. We're United States military veterans. We served our country, some of us in combat, all of us with honor. His voice carried, calm, steady, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're here because your son Tyler assaulted a 7-year-old girl named Emma Carter, held her down, shaved her head, posted the video online for entertainment. Gasps from other diners. Tyler shrank in his seat. Emma is a cancer survivor. She almost died last year. Her hair was just growing back. And your son decided that humiliating her would be fun. Brennan stepped forward. My son is a child. You're grown men intimidating him at his birthday party. Who's the bully here? The one who taught his son that cruelty is acceptable if you have money and power. The restaurant erupted in murmurs. Brennan's face went from red to purple. Sheriff Bradley arrests these men. Before Bradley could move, Tyler stood. His chair scraped loudly on the floor. Dad, stop. Tyler, sit down. No. The word came out stronger than Hawk expected. Tyler's hands shook, but he stayed standing. They're right. I did hurt Emma. Me and Kyle and Brandon and Matt and Josh. We held her down. I shaved her head. We laughed about it. And you, he looked at his father. You told me it was okay. You said she was just some poor kid who didn't matter. You said winners don't apologize. Brennan's mouth opened, closed. But I'm not a winner, Dad. I'm just mean. And I learned it from watching you. The silence was absolute. Tyler turned to face the room. Tears streamed down his face. Emma, if you're listening, somehow, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. It wasn't fun. It was cruel. And I wish I could take it back. The back door of the diner opened. Linda Carter walked in, Emma beside her. Emma wore no hat, no wig, nothing to hide her scarred head. She walked through the restaurant with her mother's hand in hers and stopped in front of Tyler. The boy who'd tortured her looked down at this small girl and couldn't hold her gaze. Emma's voice was quiet but clear. Tyler, you hurt me. You made me hate how I look. You made me scared to go outside. Tyler nodded, still crying. But you know what? I don't hate you. Tyler's head snapped up. I'm sad for you because you have a dad who taught you that being mean makes you strong. My dad died when I was little, but my mom says he would have taught me that real strength is helping people who are weaker than you, not hurting them. She looked at Robert Brennan. I wish Tyler had a dad like that. The entire restaurant stood, not all at once. One person, then another, then 10, then everyone except the Brennan family. Applause started, slow at first, then building. Emma stood in the center of it, this tiny bald 7-year-old girl who just taught a room full of adults what courage looked like. Hawk felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 20 years. Emma turned to him, walked over, looked up at his face. You kept your promise, Mr. Hawk. He knelt down to her level. You made it easy, sweetheart. All I had to do was show up. You did the hard part. She hugged him. He hugged her back. And for the first time since Fallujah, the weight on his shoulders lifted just enough that he could breathe. Sheriff Bradley stood in the doorway looking conflicted, the restraining order in his hand, the crowd applauding, Tyler confessing, Emma standing there like proof that sometimes justice wasn't about courts and lawyers. Brennan grabbed his coat. This isn't over. None of this is over. He stormed out, pulling out his phone as he went. Through the window, Hawk could see him making a call, animated, angry. Whatever was coming next would be worse than tonight. But tonight they'd won something. Not everything, not nearly enough, but something. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Hawk woke at 4:30 to his phone vibrating nonstop. Notifications, messages, calls from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored them all and dragged himself to the shower, trying to wash away the exhaustion that came from 3 hours of fractured sleep. The garage phone started ringing at 7. He let it go to voicemail. Checked the messages at 7:15. 6 were from local media wanting interviews. 3 were from customers canceling appointments. 1 was from his landlord asking him to call back immediately. The building inspector showed up at 8:30. Young guy, clipboard, official, county ID, apologetic expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mr. Morrison, I'm here on an anonymous complaint. Multiple code violations reported. I'll need to do a full inspection. Hawk watched him mark down violations that had existed for years, but nobody had cared about until now. Electrical not up to current standards. Fire suppression system outdated. Storage of flammable materials too close to work area. On and on. Each checkmark another nail. I'm going to have to issue a stop work order until these are remediated. You've got 30 days to fix everything or the permit gets pulled permanently. The inspector left. Hawk looked at the list. $15,000 minimum to bring everything up to code. He had $800 in his checking account. His phone rang again. This time he answered. Marcus Webb's voice came through smooth and precise. Mr. Morrison, I'm calling to inform you that the Brennan family is filing a $10 million civil lawsuit against you personally and against the Iron Brotherhood as an organization. You'll be served within 48 hours. The charges include harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy under RICO statutes. Hawk sat on the hood of the Harley he'd been restoring for 3 years. RICO, you're claiming we're organized crime. 94 men coordinating to intimidate a family at their private celebration. That's textbook organized criminal enterprise. We're also filing criminal complaints. Stalking, intimidation, terroristic threats. Sheriff Bradley will be making arrests by end of week. We didn't threaten anyone. Your presence was the threat. 94 men in leather and motorcycles surrounding a restaurant. That's implicit violence. Any jury will see it. The line went dead. Hawk sat there for 20 minutes. Then his landlord called. Jack, I like you, I do, but I can't have this kind of attention on my property. Brennan owns the bank that holds my commercial mortgage. He made it very clear that tenants who harbor troublemakers will find their loans called in. I need you out by end of month. Dan, I've been here 8 years. I'm sorry, Jack, I really am. But I've got 3 kids and a mortgage. I can't fight the Brennan family. Nobody can. By noon, Hawk had lost his business, his home, and any illusion that doing the right thing came without consequences. He drove to the Veterans Crisis Center. Sarah Chen took one look at his face and ushered him into her office without a word. They're destroying me. He laid it out. The lawsuit, the eviction, the stop work order, the criminal charges pending. Sarah listened, poured him coffee he didn't drink, waited. And the worst part, the Brotherhood. Some of them are backing away. Lou already pulled out, says his business got hit with health departmental violations this morning. Tommy's wife gave him an ultimatum, her or the club. Ray's church is pressuring him to distance himself or lose his position. His hands shook. I asked them to help Emma, and now they're losing everything because of me. Because I couldn't just walk away. Because I had to play hero. Jack, don't. Don't tell me it was worth it. Don't tell me we did the right thing. A little girl got 5 minutes of justice, and now 20 men are going to lose their livelihoods. That's not a win. That's not noble. That's just stupid. Sarah set down her own coffee. You're right. The words surprised him enough that he looked up. It was stupid. Tactically, strategically, practically, it was a bad decision. The Brennans have power and resources you don't have. They can absolutely destroy you. Probably will destroy you. She leaned forward, but Emma Carter stood in that restaurant and faced her bully. A 7-year-old child with cancer scars looked at the boy who tortured her and chose compassion over hatred. Tyler Brennan confessed in front of his father and 30 witnesses. That video has 3 million views now, Jack. 3 million people watched a child demonstrate courage that most adults never find. And I'll be bankrupt and homeless because of it. Probably. Is that a reason not to have done it? Hawk didn't have an answer. That night, he sat in his truck in the parking lot behind the garage. The apartment behind him was full of stuff he'd have to pack. Move somewhere? Storage, maybe? His buddy's couch. Wherever people ended up when their lives imploded. The M1911 was in the glove compartment where it always was. He hadn't looked at it with intent in 3 years. Not since Big Mike had found him that night and talked him down with nothing but presence and time. But tonight, with everything falling apart, with the weight of 20 men's destroyed lives on his conscience, with Amira's memory and Emma's trust, and his own exhausted failure pressing down tonight, the gun felt like an answer instead of a question. He pulled it out, checked the magazine. Still loaded. Always loaded, because what good was an unloaded gun when the nightmares came sat with it in his lap? Cold steel, simple mechanics, pull the trigger, and everything stops. No more lawsuits. No more guilt. No more waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if today would be the day he failed someone else who mattered. His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again and again. He looked at the screen. Linda Carter. For a long moment, he considered not answering. Considered letting it go to voicemail. Considered making the call he wouldn't be around to return. His thumb hit accept before his brain caught up. Hello? Linda's voice was tight with worry. Mr. Morrison, Hawk, I just heard about the lawsuit. About everything. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I never should have asked you. It's not your fault, Mrs. Carter. Emma wants to talk to you. She's been crying since she found out. She thinks she ruined your life. Before he could respond, Emma's voice came through. Small. Broken. Mr. Hawk. He put the gun back in the glove compartment. Closed it. Hey, sweetheart. Mom says you're in trouble because of me. Bad trouble. It's complicated, Emma. Are you going to be okay? The question hung there. He could lie. Should lie. Tell her everything was fine and not to worry. But she deserved better than lies. I don't know, Emma. Probably not. But that's not your fault. That's just what happens sometimes when you try to do the right thing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. Emma, listen to me. What happened Friday night at that restaurant? That was important. Tyler admitted what he did. You showed everyone what real courage looks like. That matters. That matters more than my garage, or my apartment, or any of this other stuff. Silence on the other end. Then, Mr. Hawk, do you remember what you told me about being brave even when you were scared? I remember. Don't quit being brave. Please, I need you. After she hung up, Hawk sat in the truck for another hour. The gun stayed in the glove compartment. Eventually, he went inside and started packing boxes. By Wednesday 15, Brotherhood members had formally withdrawn. Some because their families demanded it, some because businesses were threatened, some because they simply couldn't afford the legal exposure. That left 42 from the original 57 who'd ridden Friday night. Big Mike called an emergency meeting at the clubhouse. Only 42 members showed less than half who'd ridden Friday night. Faces grimmer. The celebration atmosphere of Friday replaced by something darker. Brothers, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're in a fight, a real one. Brennan has money and lawyers, and he's using both to break us. Some of our members have already paid a price. More will pay before this is over. He paused. So I'm saying this clearly. Anyone who wants out, leave now. No shame, no judgment. You stood up when it mattered. That's enough. Nobody moved. Tommy Doc Sullivan stood. His wife had left him 3 days ago, taken their daughter, filed for divorce. I lost my family over this, but you know what, I'd do it again, because that little girl needed someone, and we showed up. That's what matters. Ray Preacher Williams stood next. His church had removed him from ministry, 67 years old and unemployed. I've spent my whole life preaching about standing up for the weak, about protecting the defenseless. I'd be a hypocrite if I backed down now just because it cost me something. One by one, men stood, shared their stories, the losses, the pain, but also the certainty that they'd done something real, something that mattered. Hawk stood last. I want to thank you all, and I want to apologize. I'm the one who started this. I'm the one who put you at risk. If you're angry with me, you have every right to be. Big Mike shook his head. Brother, we're not angry. We're proud. You gave us something to stand for. Something bigger than ourselves. That's what brotherhood means. After the meeting, Hawk sat alone in the parking lot. A car pulled up, not one he recognized. The woman who got out was mid-40s, Asian professional clothing, leather briefcase. Mr. Morrison, my name is Sandra Mills. I'm a journalist with the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'd like to talk to you about what happened Friday night. I don't have anything to say. I've been investigating the Brennan family for 6 months. Sexual harassment complaints at his dealerships, labor violations, intimidation of whistleblowers. Your case isn't the first time he's used money and power to crush people, but it might be the first time someone fought back in a way people noticed. Hawk studied her, tired eyes, determined jaw, the look of someone who'd been fighting her own battles. What do you want from me? Tell me your story. Let me dig into Brennan's past. Let me show people that you're not a biker gang terrorizing a family. You're veterans protecting a child. And that helps me how I'm still being sued for $10 million I don't have. It helps by putting pressure on Brennan, by making this too public to sweep under the rug, by showing people what really happened. Hawk considered, nodded. Okay, but you talk to Emma's mother first. Get her permission. This is her daughter's story, more than mine. Sandra Mills published her first article Wednesday evening. By Thursday morning, it had been picked up by Associated Press. By Friday, it was national news. The narrative shifted. Not bikers intimidating a family, veterans standing up for a bullied child, not criminals under RICO, men willing to sacrifice everything for justice. A GoFundMe appeared, created by someone Hawk had never met. Help Hawk and the Brotherhood fight back. 24 hours later, it had raised $80,000. Messages poured in from across the country. Veterans, parents of bullied children, cancer survivors. People who saw something in Emma's courage or Hawk's sacrifice that resonated with their own struggles. Robert Brennan's public image took hits he couldn't deflect with money. His dealerships saw protests. His business deals stalled. His name became synonymous not with success, but with cruelty. But he didn't back down. If anything, he doubled down. Friday morning, Hawk was formally arrested, charged with stalking, intimidation, conspiracy. Bail set at $50,000. The GoFundMe paid it within an hour. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Marcus Webb filed 300 pages of motions. Every legal tactic available deployed at once. Bury them in paperwork. Drown them in procedure. Make fighting back more expensive than surrendering. James Fletcher, the pro bono lawyer, Big Mike had found was a veteran himself, Navy JAG officer turned criminal defense attorney, 58 years old, silver hair, sharp eyes. The kind of lawyer who didn't intimidate easily. He met with Hawk in his temporary office, a conference room at the VFW Hall. I'm going to be honest with you. We're outgunned. Brennan's legal team is top tier. They've got resources I can't match. But they've got weaknesses too. What weaknesses? Pride, overconfidence, and a client who doesn't know when to shut up. Brennan keeps talking to media, keeps making statements. Every time he does, he gives me ammunition. Fletcher spread out documents across the table. Sandra Mills found something interesting. 2 other families, 29 and 2321, both involved Tyler Brennan. Both ended with settlements and NDAs. One was assault, one was sexual harassment. Both times Brennan paid them off and buried it. Can we use that? If we can get them to break their NDAs, that's a big if. These are scared families who took money to protect themselves. Asking them to give that up and expose themselves to retaliation, that's a hard sell. So we're back to being screwed. Not screwed, just fighting uphill. But Hawk, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've learned that truth has a way of coming out. We just have to be patient and make sure we're there when it does. The Rodriguez family lived 40 minutes north in a house with peeling paint and a yard that needed mowing. Mr. Rodriguez answered the door with suspicion hardening his features. Hawk stood on the porch alone. No backup, no cameras, just one man asking another for help. Mr. Rodriguez, my name is Jack Morrison. I'm here about your son Miguel and what happened with Tyler Brennan 4 years ago. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. We can't talk about that. We signed papers. I know, but there's another child now. Emma Carter, 7 years old. Tyler did to her what he did to Miguel. Maybe worse. That's not our problem. You're right, it's not. But Mr. Rodriguez, I was in Fallujah in 2004. I was supposed to protect an Iraqi family. A little girl named Amira. I failed her. She died because I wasn't good enough. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Why are you telling me this? Because I understand why you took that settlement. I understand wanting to protect your son from more pain. I understand all of it. But I'm asking you, one father to another, help me make sure Tyler can't do this to anyone else. Rodriguez looked back into his house. A woman appeared in the doorway behind him. Mrs. Rodriguez. She'd been listening. Invite him in, Carlos. They sat at a kitchen table, scarred with years of use. Miguel appeared 16 now, taller than Hawk remembered from the photos, with careful eyes and guarded posture. Mrs. Rodriguez poured coffee. Nobody drank. Tyler and his friends jumped Miguel after school, beat him badly, broken ribs, concussion, called him things I won't repeat. Mr. Brennan came to our house 3 days later with a lawyer and a check for $15,000. What did the lawyer say? That if we didn't take the money, Mr. Brennan would file assault charges against Miguel. Said Miguel started it. That we'd go to court and lose because we couldn't afford a real lawyer. That Miguel would end up with a record that would follow him forever. Carlos Rodriguez's hands clenched into fists on the table. I took the money. I signed the papers. I told Miguel to keep quiet because I was scared and poor, and I believed Brennan when he said he could destroy us. And now I see a 7-year-old girl getting the same treatment my son got. Now I see Brennan trying to destroy people for having the courage I didn't have. Now I'm tired of being scared. Miguel spoke for the first time. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone what Tyler did, what his father did. I don't care about the NDA anymore. They found the Patterson family next. Harder sell. Sophie Patterson was 15 now, a sophomore in high school, still carrying trauma from what Tyler had done when she was 13. Her mother was protective, fierce, unwilling to put her daughter through more pain. But Sophie herself surprised at everyone. Mom, I've been seeing that video of Emma. That little girl stood up to her bully in front of everyone. She was 7. I'm 15. If she can be that brave, I can tell my story. Baby, they'll attack you, online, in court, everywhere. Let them. At least I'll know I tried to stop Tyler from hurting someone else. The hearing wasn't in a proper courtroom, just a conference room at the county courthouse where preliminary matters got hashed out before trial. But it mattered. This would determine whether charges moved forward or got dismissed. Brennan's team had 5 lawyers. Fletcher had himself and 2 paralegals borrowed from other firms. The judge was 60-something, female reputation for fairness, but no tolerance for nonsense. Brennan's lead attorney laid out their case. 94 bikers coordinating to intimidate a family. Criminal conspiracy, terroristic threats, pattern of harassment. Your Honor, these men used their size, their numbers, their implicit violence to terrorize my clients at a private family celebration. This is textbook organized crime behavior. Fletcher stood. Your Honor, these men are United States military veterans. Every one of them served with honor. They didn't threaten anyone. They didn't touch anyone. They walked into a public restaurant and spoke truth. That's called free speech. That's called peaceful assembly. That's called being American citizens who care about children. They violated a restraining order. A restraining order filed an hour before they arrived. A restraining order designed to prevent them from exercising their constitutional rights. That order was questionable at best, unconstitutional at worst. The judge looked at both sides. I'll hear testimony. Mr. Morrison, you're up first. Hawk took the stand feeling like he was back in Fallujah, getting debriefed after Amira's death. Same weight, same scrutiny, same sense that nothing he said would be good enough. Brennan's attorney came at him hard. Mr. Morrison, you suffer from PTSD, correct? Yes. You take multiple medications for mental health issues? Depression and anxiety, yes. You were arrested in 2005 for assault, sent a man to the hospital with serious injuries. I intervened when he was beating his girlfriend in a parking lot. The charges were dismissed. But you did beat him, severely, 3 broken ribs, fractured jaw, orbital fracture. I used the force necessary to stop him from killing her. Or you lost control, like you did in Fallujah when a child died on your watch. Fletcher objected. The judge sustained it. But the damage was done. The jury, when there was one, would hear about Fallujah, about Amira, about every failure Hawk had spent 20 years trying to outrun. The cross-examination went on for 2 hours. Every weakness exposed, every scar picked open. By the end, Hawk felt hollowed out, used up. Then Fletcher called his witnesses. Miguel Rodriguez testified about being beaten by Tyler's group, about the payoff, about the NDA designed to protect a bully. Sophie Patterson testified about sexual harassment, about being groped and photographed, about Tyler's smug confidence that his father would protect him. The room grew quieter with each story. The pattern became undeniable. Then Fletcher did something nobody expected. Your Honor, I'd like to call Tyler Brennan to the stand. Chaos. Brennan's lawyers objected. This was their client's son, a minor. This was improper. The judge considered. The young man is involved in multiple incidents central to this case. I'll allow brief questioning. Tyler took the stand, looking terrified. 13 years old, pale, shaking. Fletcher's voice was gentle. Tyler, did you assault Emma Carter? Yes. Did your father know about it? I don't. Tyler, did you tell your father what you'd done? Long pause. Then yes, I showed him the video. I thought he'd be mad, but he laughed. He said I was learning how the world works, that winners don't apologize. Brennan stood up. Tyler, shut your mouth right now. The judge's gavel came down hard. Mr. Brennan, sit down or be removed. Tyler looked at his father, then at the judge, then at Hawk. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of pretending it was okay. It wasn't okay. I hurt Emma because I learned from Dad that hurting people weaker than you makes you strong. But it doesn't. It just makes you mean. Tears streamed down Tyler's face. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry I hurt you. And I'm sorry these men are being punished for trying to protect you when nobody else would. The hearing ended an hour later. The judge took 2 days to decide. When the ruling came, it was mixed. Criminal charges dismissed. No conspiracy. No terroristic threats. Protected speech in assembly. But the civil suit would proceed. Brennan could still bankrupt them with legal fees even if he lost. Victory and defeat wrapped together. Hawk stood outside the courthouse with Linda and Emma. Media everywhere. Cameras. Questions shouted. Chaos. Emma looked up at him. Did we win? We didn't lose. That's something. But they're still going to sue you. Probably. Emma's small hand found his. Then we keep fighting, right? Hawk looked at this 7-year-old child who taught him more about courage than 20 years in uniform ever had. Yeah, sweetheart, we keep fighting. 18 months later, Hawk stood in the parking lot of a middle school, watching Emma walk in with a group of friends. Her hair had grown back, still short but healthy, thick. She'd refused to grow it long. Said she liked it this way, a reminder of what she'd survived. The civil suit had settled 6 months ago. Brennan dropped it after federal investigators opened a probe into his dealerships. Fraud, labor violations, tax evasion. Turned out Sandra Mill's investigation had uncovered things that mattered to prosecutors. Brennan did 18 months in federal prison, lost 3 of his dealerships, filed bankruptcy. His empire collapsed not because of Hawk, but because his own crimes finally caught up with him. Tyler lived with his mother now. Different school, therapy twice a week. Slowly learning that his father's lessons about strength had been lies. The Brotherhood had 55 members now. Some who'd ridden that night never came back, lost to fear or consequences. But new veterans had joined men who'd heard the story and wanted to be part of something that mattered. Those who remained were closer, stronger, united by shared sacrifice. Hawk's garage had reopened. Different location. Smaller, but his. The GoFundMe had covered the repairs and legal fees with money left over. He'd used it to start a nonprofit. Emma's Warriors. Support for bullied children and their families. Emma volunteered there every Saturday, teaching younger kids that courage wasn't about being unafraid. It was about being afraid and standing up anyway. Hawk watched her disappear into the school building, confident, smiling, alive. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Chen. "How's she doing?" he typed back. "She's doing great. We both are." Not perfect. He still woke up with nightmares, still saw Amira's face, still carried guilt that probably wouldn't ever fully fade. But he also saw Emma, saw her strength, saw her healing, saw proof that sometimes broken things could protect other broken things. And sometimes in protecting them, they healed themselves. His phone rang. Big Mike. Hawk got a call from a family in Pittsburgh. Their son's being bullied at school. Nobody's helping. They heard about Emma, asked if we could. Hawk looked at the school, at the future Emma was building, at the second chance she'd given him. "Yeah, Mike, we can help. That's what we do." He climbed on his Harley, the same one he'd been restoring for years. Finally finished, finally whole, started the engine, let it rumble, and rode toward the next child who needed someone brave enough to stand up, because that's what promises meant. And he'd learned from a 7-year-old girl that some promises were worth keeping no matter the cost.